Hi there, Ranger Green here. I want to change gear a bit here in video 5. I want to talk a little bit about some of the difficulties on the path and some of the difficulties in following the work on the timelines. And it is in a way due to me finalizing, as always, when we work through the pillars, we're working from the beginning and then we work all the way up the 7 layers of each pillar till we get to the top layer where we understand what the pillar work has been about and what the cycles should have taught us as we have been doing the pillar work. This is a little bit of what we could call a combination of many different factors. One thing is that I have found some material that has been provided via regressions. It's an older material, it's actually from the 90s. Has been provided via regressions where people are in deep hypnosis but are talking from what we call a highest level within themselves. We could call it the super conscious. And there I found a lot of confirmation of all of the information I have gotten. Aside from these are from different people and different entities and different extraterrestrials and different groups that were part of the old world order, which should be no surprise is where I belong, not part of the colonizing races, but the time epoch that they kind of have concluded. And at the same time, I got an interesting email from one that actually invited me to meet his guru because he thought that, I don't know if he actually thought that I would benefit from meeting his guru or his guru would benefit from meeting me. Either way, it sparked to life an interesting series of events that led me to Mu, the lost continent, and that's the continent before Lemuria. That's one of the oldest human continents that we have got, and that's where the Dark Ones actually originate from, which was very, very interesting to get so far back. And the guy that texted me or sent me an email, he was actually from India, so there was some very interesting aspects of that, including knowledge about the cycles and the yugas, which are the Hindu, in many ways the Hindu teachings talk about the same things as I'm talking about, because we are all talking about the same things, but it all comes back to Atlantis. We all end up in Atlantis when we're doing this work right now, because both Bailey material and others, including the regression or the hypnosis material, it's called regression when you regress back in time in past lives and further on and get into the root of whatever we are struggling with in this life. And the one that provided the hypnosis taking back was part of a group of people that did that. I have read several books where people are working psychologically as a psychodynamically in therapy with their past lives to solve some of the issues they have in current lifetime. And the therapist, she talks about the release of karma, and the Hindus, they talk about the release of karma, and the Buddhists, they put it into the word of the Dharma. The Dharma is the path. But the regressionist, she points out that there's so many things in what she's saying that she's using different words, but and sometimes she's actually using the exact same words and ideas that I am working with. The library, the councils, the 60% of human population that has no soul, etc., etc. There's a lot of confirmation of my work there, which is probably why I've been pointed in that direction, because I kind of had a little bit of a crisis when I'm doing this, working on the different paths of information that I am, and in that always trying to figure out, okay, which are what we call the remains of the original systems of thought that we can use, and which ones are not in our best interest to pursue anymore. Even in her book material where I read about these regressions, which is good because she's just reporting them, she's not interpreting. She is, but she's not same as Bailey. Bailey was not high-leveled enough to interpret the information she got from the Tibetan, but he took her off of necessity. She was the only one that could get the imprints to such a degree as she did, and she was very effective being his secretary, to put it that way. And here we are, and we keep reminding ourselves that he is an ascended master. Interestingly enough, it's just they're not masters, they're not ascended. They're part of the lunar races that bridged to our system during the times of Atlantis. So, anyways, it is what it is. That is written in the Bailey material as well. So it's all about reading between the lines when we're reading this and understanding what is being said there. But one of the things I'm getting from these regressions from different people that are remembering the different timelines is, as I said, an almost to the detailed confirmation of all the things I've seen. And that's where I wanted to go, because in this work, when we begin working with our timelines and what we get of information, all the people I've been working with, and I've got imprints of their energy system, and by that, for a short period of time, either had jumpers or entities that wanted to be released, because that's part of my work, my dirty work here on this planet, so that all that belongs to the old timelines of the old world before the hijacking. The true world colonies that were here will be let back home, so that we can shut down our affiliation with this system, as the remains of it will fall into the category of a devastation system in a devastation cycle. And it has to go there because 60% of the human population has no soul, if not more so now, due to the events that happened on August 17th, 2017. And I'm making this video on August 17th, 2022. So there's a 5-year period, and numbers matters. So we are having both, I'm having kind of the top of the 4th cycle going back to the continent of Mu, as well as the origin of the Dark Ones, which was a new one for me, but important to understand, because I always had this whenever I was dealing with the Dark Ones that were ready to jump ship and leave the dark avatar collective and go back home, so to speak, to the origin of where they came from. And that's the true worlds were infected by the energies of the timeline event, even though we could say it happened in a specific nodal point in the reality network. It rippled out and touched many other nodal points, which we would see as linear time. If we do it within that spectrum, we will not get the right understanding, because there is no linear time. There is no past, present, and future as we understand it. There are different nodal points in the reality field, which we can travel as we use the pathways between the nodal points in the lattice network that composes our reality in a holographic manner. And the regression material talk about the same things. All the things I've seen is being confirmed in that, which is a booster, not for my ego, because I don't have that kind of thing, but for my continued work, because sometimes when we work on our own in the 5th cycle, it is good to have both things that challenge us, but also things that confirm that we are on the right path in the way that we work, as in within the laws and the rules and the principles of our system, so that we can rebuild our energy system in the correct manner. I want to go with what challenges us as path cutters, because one of the things, again, Atlantis had many different stages, and just in that regression material, I'm encountering the different levels there. It began on a high and ended in an extreme low, and I've gotten to the low point where they began genetic experiments, and that's where the technocrats entered the Atlantean project and led it to its devastation, along with the Dark Ones and other groups of the Lunars that created priesthoods. And then we began having the temples, and what was gained was lost in the gain for the attempt to gain more power and the wrongful use of energy, which again was led by the male population. And I, in this work, And in the understandings of what the counselors have asked me to do to figure out, in the regression materials always talked about, it's the physicality. That's why none of the higher dimensional races want to enter into this reality. If they do, they use grace because of the physicality. And that's what they said in that material in the 90s. And I'm elaborating into, no, it's not just the physicality. It's the problem with the chromosomes and the X and the Y, and it's the problem with our sheets, and it's the problem with the infection and the contamination and what has transpired in our reality field. The rise and fall of many civilizations, which are lodged into the 7 layers of the underworld, where the ghost and the imprints of these times are stored in pockets of the racial grid. And that is tied to our human DNA. And that is what we are going to face as we move into the 2-8 pillar, where the last stages of the Kali Yuga, that is the cycle of the underworld. Kali is the goddess of death, but also of fertility. You can look that one up, and that is very accurate when we talk about the energies that we're dealing with right now. Not that we could say that the 2-8 pillar in itself is oriented towards the XX chromosomes and some of the things that are tied to that, because it goes also into the contamination in the second cycle, and there were definitely males there that suffered what we call a downfall, which is why I was brought to Mu, which were the continent that were on our planet under the 2-8 pillar. And again, different stages. Humans as descendants of the quote-unquote seed races under the different galactic races that were present here, as well as the original solar system humans that were working with the progressive councils under the directive of the less progressive universal structure, of which we should see the different seedings as an attempt to create organic vessels that would upgrade here in the outer domain the different genetic compositions to rebuild the original consciousness structure, matching the next step of the elevation cycles of the progressive worlds. So that's the interesting thing got in that one. But from a male perspective, because the males that fell during, there was, again, the first cycle, I think that's one of the ones when we reach that one later on in 2034, then I'll get the information of the first cycle and the continents right there, just suggesting might be Hyperborea has been talked about. But Mu was from the 2-8 pillar, and the male energies I got there. And I got that from the Indian guy that texted me or sent me an email. Very polite, by the way. And I'm sure he did not expect the response he did, because the council stepped in due to the top level of some of the Brahim races, the priestly Kundalini work, because he was practicing Kundalini yoga, which is only for males. And it has to do with the Dakini, or the female energy, that is part of the male YX buildup. And the X in itself holds the female code pattern, which in the Kundalini Yoga has been interpreted as the Shakti female energy that is stored in the root of the males, that they are to work with and rise up like a snake. It's not said that it is a snake, but it's coiled like a snake in the 3 lower, there are 3 what call eggs of energy that are stored in the male root chakra, and that's why he is constantly oriented towards sexual energy and the outlet of the sexual energies, which prevents the inner female X chromosome energy code stream, code features to rise up and activate into the spine, and by that recreate the 3 third cycle channels that run in males and controls their brain to the X chromosome 4th cycle features. And in that understanding, which many males are working with the Kundalini, they completely miss this. They're just working with sounds and symbols as they're seeing depicted it on different. Just look up Wikipedia chakra system and you'll get whatever you need there. But the old guru ways are all about symbols and animals and colors and working with these. And I've in my work with the chakra system, my approach has been the Bailey material to that, but the original one that I remember and the way I have worked with it is the way of the Kala chakra, and that's where you work with the devas. And there, to be able to do that, you have to have an enormously high purity rate, but that's the middle domain, non-organic people that live there. These are the devas technically. Anyways, it's part of Hindu mythology as well. So I got a little bit around about that one more time. But it became clear to me as path cutters and what we need to do to get to the 5th chromosome, that the greatest issue for men are not only their temper, which we know the mental field that so easily get taken over by the dark forces. I've seen it so many times now, I can say it without a shred of a doubt, including just look at the world, people. Just look at the world, what males have done to this world, and how they have suppressed the females on this planet, when in fact they were supposed to coexist and work with the females. And the regressionist, she also talks about the females during Atlantis and all the time epochs trying to work against the males. Every time a civilization fall, it's the males. I'm sorry guys, it is you. You are the cause of the devastation cycles. I'm sorry to say so, but you are. And that's, I always knew when I began this work that to begin with, I was disappointed that I was in a female body, because I felt that's the worst body you can have. But at the same time, it also gives me the perspective of wholeness, and at the same time, it gives me a certain it gives me a different approach, because females are on this planet and males don't know this. They hear about it, but they don't know it because they don't feel it. They're not females, they're males. They're still part of the world. Is a world, it's a man's world. You know the songs, it is, look at it, it still is a man's world. Men are still acting as if it's their playground, and they're still working with whatever's going on here to gain more power and get more insight and get, again, using wrongful use of energy, constantly wrongful use of energy. And you see, this is where the saddening things comes in, because when we do talk about Kundalini yoga and what the priestly lineages took with them, was that they fell at the end of the Atlantis. That's the priestly lineages that went to India, and they took with them that understanding that for men to rise up and become their full potentials, they must integrate the content, the code systems of the X chromosome. The X chromosome is the 4th cycle. Nothing to do with gender. Males and females have X chromosomes, so it's nothing to do with gender. It's the cycle chromosomes. The chromosomes are the physical representative of the consciousness potentials of each cycle. So the Y chromosome is the 3rd cycle consciousness, the X chromosome is the 4th cycle consciousness. But the 4th cycle consciousness run on the features we interpret as feminine. Tribal consciousness, work for the highest good of the many, work as teams, work with self-other dynamics, taking responsibility, working to assist the wholeness of the society we are part of, so that everybody grows, everybody gets the potentials of growth. And that's one of the main themes of the progressive worlds. As you know, the main themes of the humanoid or the male worlds is this whole diversity, its challenges, its power seeking, its service to self, orientation, etc., etc. All about hierarchical structures where they can climb and challenge themselves in a sort of competition instead of teamwork. Instead of learning to work with each other, they quote unquote fight each other energetically, verbally, mentally, whatever, to gain more power. It's a man's world of being best buddies, but at the same time also knowing that the best buddies can become the worst enemies. And that's not the female consciousness structure or the 4th cycle. So therefore, when the priestly lineages left, they had regressed a version of themselves. Part of them had regressed into the 3rd cycle. Due to the use of technology and wrongful use of genetic experimentations and what they did there. So portions of their double genome structure, the progressive worlds and the humanoid worlds, had regressed to the third cycle, and they still had the fourth cycle progressive ideas in them. And that is kind of the foundation of the Kundalini yoga. I'm not going to do a long stuff about it because it's so distorted. And tapping into these teachings of the already distorted Brahmin priestly lineages that were oriented towards a specific group of humanoids will not do any good, since most people that have worked with the Kundalini ideas inside this reality today have been taken over by the dark snakes. So it's been a dark Kundalini awakening, even though it presents itself to be light. But it is the dark ones that are taking over, and they do so both due to the, let me put this, the Brahim priestly lineages came from Mu, even though they were part of Atlantis, because there has always been the ones that goes through each continent. There are always the ones that survive, that move on and create these specific lineages. Anyway, so that's just the origin, which was interesting, because when I look at the India, is always kind of, where does that come from? Yeah, we have the fifth root race of the Indian the Aryan Shivas, but they are a Syrian race of some other origin. It's easier for me to say they are reptile mammal, which is more accurate. So where does that come from? Where does the priestly lineages of India come from? And that's kind of what I got the answer of today. Mu. India is connected to Mu. So that was with that knowledge, everything just kind of fall in place. The way they treat their females, as we're seeing it as breeders, only as breeders. So we are seeing a world where the humanoid Y chromosome has superseded their progressive X chromosome and have suppressed the female energy both internally and externally into a dormant potentiality in the male. And most of the time, males on our planet has been reprogrammed to, instead of seeking the inner knowledge and reconnect to their inner Dakini, which Jung worked with, Carl Gustav Jung worked with his idea of reconnecting to the anima, the female counterpart within the males, which goes with the Kundalini awakening that is a merging of Shiva and Shakti, not as a female sexual energy or a male sexual energy. That's a wrongful use of the life force energies, just connect to a physical form. Sexual energy has nothing to do with it. It's consciousness potentials. It's the correct energy configuration that leads to the merging of the X and Y chromosome and their potentials that rises the third cycle consciousness structure of spatial energy into being merged with the fourth cycle, teamwork, tribal, the highest good of the many, progressive ideologies, and by that get the code system back of the fourth cycle, which will then merge the XY chromosome into being able to complete the 1-7 pillar. Males need to complete the 1-7 pillar, whereas females are on the 2-8 pillar, and that's why we're going to get hit once we go into the 2-8 pillar work, because we are in the XX configuration where we have an X chromosome of the fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis and an X chromosome after the fall of Atlantis. And these two things have been highly manipulated with by what we call negative female forces, unfortunately. So that's what has been done to our X chromosome, including the oppression that has happened to us over the course of time, where females have been programmed to mate and join their energy fields with the Y chromosome oriented males, which then contaminates their XX chromosome potentials and give them the third cycle distorted energies in their energy system, which is why both males and females must abstain from the merging. They must abstain from merging their fields in sexual activity, because the energies of the body should not be used for sexual activity. Not when we do this work. If you want to have a family and do the base program, fornicate away, do whatever you want to do. But if you want to get out of the base program and you want to get into the realms of true energy and consciousness, sex has no place. Just is that way. Just is that way. It's the wrongful use of the bodily energies. But you will observe, as many others on this path, especially males, that is pretty difficult because you have for so many life cycles been conditioned to utilize your sexual energy and spill it to the ground, as the gurus call it, which is why the gurus, one of the ways they have worked around this is to try and contain the whole male organ area as well, the phallic area, into being putting stones to their bowls and water, hanging stones from their parts and whatever, to show that they master that level and are no longer controlled by it. And why is that? Because when you are to activate the X chromosome female code systems in yourself, which has been interpreted as the Dakini energy, that is kind of what we call an inner female representation of the X chromosome, which can rise up as a symbolic representation, as a diva feature, that's the Dakini, or the Shakti energies, which again, I don't really appreciate the Shiva Shakti analogy, because that is always, that's the Tantra version of it that leads to the wrongful use of sexual energy, where most of the ones that are doing this, males and females, are then blending in sexual activity. That's why I don't really like the Shakti Shiva ideas, which is also part of the sacred marriage, and it all goes with the dark priestly races. That's their version of Kundalini awakening processes. So don't do that. Don't do the whole male-female in organic vessels joining together to try and rise the highest level of energy in both. That is dark magic. It will always be dark magic, because you don't use the energies of the body to rise up anything else than contamination and infection and wrongful use of the energy that is lodged into our human DNA. And that's part of our karma. That's part of the purification process of our bodily molecular state that is imbued with, as the Bailey material also talks about it, the contamination and the diseases of the Petries, the lunar Petries, the forefathers, the races that have come before us, that have all fallen. So in our human DNA, it's not about our physicality. Well, that is. That's why they don't want to take on this physical form. It is so imbued with contamination. And as we activate, we understand how much, not only in our own energy system, on our own personal path, or dharma, because dharma means path, on our own personal path of incarnations, that is the timeline work. That's the dharma, that's the timeline work. The karma is the molecular clearing purification work. So there you begin to have it. When we work with the dharma, we work with the heart field. When we work with the karma, we work with the root vortex, or the biological human DNA, and clearing that one and upgrading our chromosomal level. So the males are to work with the X chromosome and integrate that and activate the 3 channels that go through the spine up, and recalibrate the brain with the correct female orientation. It has nothing to do with sexuality, and yet men are oriented towards the outer female, and in their attempt to conquer the female energy, they use their dicks as tools, as weapons, as probing, prodding, phallic interaction with the females, penetrating the female energy system to absorb and become part of something they have lost. That is the literal interpretation of sex. No matter how much kind the men are in their sexual approach, this is why they do that. They have the sexual urge to blend because they're missing something, and they think they need it from the female, and it all becomes tits and asses, which is the perverted version of it. So that's the perverted Shakti, Madonna, slut interpretation that they are looking for something, and when females don't respond in the manner as either being very motherly or very caring or very subservient or whatever, they switch into the Y chromosome and get angry why they don't get what they need. And then we have that typical switch of males, which many females unfortunately have encountered again and again and again. And it's a problem. It's a problem on a global scale, which I am pondering upon whether or not it is possible somehow, somewhere, to do a series of podcasts out on YouTube to point in that direction. But the dangers that are connected to that's literally like putting your entire body into a hornet's nest and get stung from all levels, because that's one of the things that can really... There are a few issues left in this world where things can go really wrong, and that's one of them, even though that it needs to be addressed, and females are constantly trying to rise up the issue of their position inside this reality. But there's a solution to that. That's something to do with the energy work of the females, which I will return to when I'm done here with the XY chromosome configuration. So the goal for males are to feminize their sexuality. Step 1. Not to become estrogen-driven males with fat bellies. That's not what I'm saying. On the contrary, you still need to have the very strong male feature, but you are to purify yourself in energy work with the approach to the plant-based diet, the work with energies, the caretaking of plants, environment, your food, the energy work, the wholeness ideologies, which many men are doing in the spiritual communities, and then as well as purification of the personality structure and really working internally with the understanding of activating the X chromosome to the level where it can begin to unfold its fourth cycle content in a male version. So when I mean feminize it, you're not to seek your inner female bullshit, because that has not led anyone anywhere. On the contrary, it leads to confusion in the male consciousness structure, the personality matrix, to be a female or whatever. And we can say, well, once they begin to produce a high level of oxytocin, they become more motherly and they begin to care and they know how to bond. So that's a good thing. But that's again, when we talk about parenting or taking care of another life form, then the oxygen kicks in. And that's the same for males and females. That's what bonds us together. So that's not what I'm talking about either. And it's not about you becoming the protector of the females and all of the other stuff. These are all male programs. No, it has to do with discovering your personal X configuration of the fourth cycle. Who were you in the fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis? And who were you in the receding after the fall of Atlantis? What are your potentials? What are your abilities in the fourth cycle that you need to utilize? The progressive dynamics for the wholeness, for the highest good of the many, following the principles and the rules and the laws. How do you utilize that in a manner that allows you to activate your X chromosome on the correct level so that it can purify and merge with the Y chromosome, and by that extract the highest potential of the Y chromosome, the spatial features, the understanding of compartmentalization, of traveling in space, of working with the holographic network, all things that are part of the 3-9 pillar, all of these levels of understanding. And then the X chromosome is the 4-10 pillar, because even though we're talking about the things that went wrong with the Y chromosome and the X chromosome, when it's completely combined together, then the completion is of the 1-7 cycle or 1-7 pillar. And you say, well, that doesn't add up when you're saying the Y chromosome is connected to the 3-9 and the X chromosome is connected to the 4-10. These are the teachings. There's a difference between having it integrated into your energy system of the 7 foundational dimensions of your, in this reality, present energy system. That's the 1-7 pillar. And then the teachings that will unravel the code systems of the 3-9 pillar into the Y chromosome, and the teachings that will unravel the 4-10 pillar consciousness potentials into the X chromosome. I hope you really understand this. So you need these two to combine these two 3, 9, and 4, 10 pillar teaching systems to be able to complete the 1, 7 pillar configuration, which is the foundational correct code system on all energy fields of your, what we could call it, basic energy system, having organic vessel and the 6-layered energy system that leads to the template consciousness potentials. So that's the understanding of that one. So I hope I've made it clear here. So you are activating the 410 pillar teachings that are lodged in one of the X in the root, which is not the root, but it's kind of part of the base of the spine. You have your physicality, the present version of who and what you are, the physical energies that needs to be transformed. That's the biofield that needs to be transformed to its highest purity rate with no sexual inclination or sexual energy. And then you have the third egg that is the upgraded version of the Y chromosome that is stored there, the code systems that are stored there. So you have 3 eggs of code systems at the root of your spine. And that is to be, once you have reached the purification of your male sexuality by feminizing it so that you no longer exploit anyone else to get energy, because that's what males do constantly, because you lack the female energy, so to speak. So you think you need to hunt it on the outside. You need to conquer the female energy. You need to suppress the female energy. You need to take control of the female energy. You need to penetrate the female energy in forms of females that are walking around you. But the matter of the fact is, it's your own X chromosome 410 pillar work that you need to get back into the inner teachings, the inner knowledge, the true knowledge of responsibility, of what it means to be a progressive human, what it means to work for harmony, balance, and order, and not chaos, diversity, and challenges and transformation of energy by conquering it and mastering it and subduing it or controlling it or whatever to gain power, which is the key signature of the third cycle humanoid features. That's what made the laggards. That's why they couldn't follow. That's the D13 collective. That's the top of the Y chromosome. That's the top of the Dark Avatar collective. That's why they couldn't move on with the cycles of the progressive worlds, because they couldn't let go of that third cycle consciousness structure. They still wanted to have power over the spatial energies, conquering space with crafts, mechanics, technology. So that's the feminizing of it, as in kind of working, instead of working with the spatial outer energies of conquering space with technology and power systems, then it's about feminizing the male energy system into understanding the fourth 10 cycle teaching systems of unity and wholeness and working together as teams. And I know many males are trying to do that, and they are having all of these nice floskels, it was a Danish word, sorry, all of these nice sayings where they are just doing what they know is the right approach to appease the females, to put it that way, or to sound very spiritual or compassionate. But words do not cut it. That's a mental feature again. It's not about a theory or being able to say the right words. It's about a perception and a true understanding that goes with inner knowledge and the light of that knowledge that will recreate the correct 3 channels that will recalibrate the male brain out of the dark energies. And that has its origin back to Mu, which is the version of the X chromosome that males have got. So, and there I'm a little bit, that's for you guys to work that one out, because I was not part of Mu. I was not here at all at that time. So that's some of the deepest levels of your version of the X chromosome that you have to work with to recalibrate that correctly. I know it's not much to go for, but still, if you contemplate on that, as in kind of seeing the 3 channels of light as the 3X that you have of the X chromosome need the white configuration. The sexual energies need to be purified into what we would call pure code systems of the organic vessel, of the male organic vessel, and purifying that to the highest degree of what males can actually become in their physical form on all levels of maleness, which only males truly know, because I'm a female, so I don't truly know it. I'm a female body. We have a different version of purification, and to get rid of the programs and the connection that you are the, what we call the base program factory settings of what a male is. That's that one in the middle, that's connected to your personality structure and your karma and your past lives and everything that you are doing here. That's connected to the heart field. It's connected to the timelines. It's connected to all the wrongdoings that you have been part of in leading civilizations after civilizations to their knees, to put it that way. That's some of the male collective karma that males need to deal with, and that is yours to deal with. Females have another version of the same, but we are dealing with the fact that we did not rise to our potentials either, and that's some of the things I want to talk about in the next video. And then males say, I don't want to listen to the next video because that's all for females. No, you should listen to that one too, because at some point you will get into the XX configuration or your version of it. You need to go to the X. There is a new chromosome. We don't have a name for it. It's like a 5-pointed star, not a pentagram. But as you have the X with 4 legs, you have 5-legged chromosome that is the X chromosome with the additional vertical adding to it in between the 2 upper arms, so you get the true human form. And that's the X 5th chromosome configuration, the 4-5 configuration from the 4th cycle to the 5th cycle, that both males and females are to work to get to in this time. And you see females have a little bit of what we call an advantage there, because we have got an XX configuration, so we only need to lift the 4th cycle before the fall of Atlantis and clear out the 4th cycle after the fall of Atlantis. And here we need the 4th cycle before the fall of Atlantis to take that and incorporate into the X chromosome after the fall of Atlantis and upgrade that one into the 5th chromosome, so that we can take the best of the 4th cycle before the fall of Atlantis and lift it into its highest potential in the next set of chromosomes. And as we merge these two, it becomes the 5th chromosome, or the 4-5 configuration that females need to work with. And males need to get there too. So you're one step behind. All of this power seeking and all of the collective male karma has put you on a disadvantage. It's a handicap that is more severe than of the females. And now in these expedited times where the yugas are expediting quickly, and that's what I want to talk about in the next video as well, males have more work to do, and by that must struggle even further alongside with all of the other issues of the collective karma of all of your deeds in this world, in this lifetime as well, and all of the things, even though you were born a young guy or a young man and you are still, I haven't participated in the world government shitty decisions, you're still part of the collective male karma, as females are part of the collective female karma. So we have our individual karma, but we also have the karma of our nation, and we have the karma of our species and our gender, so to speak. That is part of our molecular state as well. And that's the unity consciousness structure. We are part of the unity, because we're holographic beings. What we are ripple into the collective, and what the collective is ripples back into us. It's a feed loop system. So if the individual males can change who and what they are and feminize their sexual energy into being non-sexual, work with their personality structure to lift the male organic biocodes to their highest purity rate, where they become pure codes, which I don't know what is to be honest, I don't know what it is, so don't ask me, because I'm not in a male form, so I can't tell you. But I know that's what it is. But I do know that the two counter sides, the X chromosome, the Y chromosome, the consciousness levels of these, them I know what is, because that's part of the pillar work, as I've explained, the 3-9 pillar and the 4-10 pillar, and complete the consciousness teaching systems there, which I have taught in my classes. So that you have the consciousness you need to have, that I can tell you. But the purification of the male biocodes, I can't, because I'm not a male. That's for you to do. And that's some of the things the counselors asked me to work with, why I did not give up on that male, because I was actually trying to assist him in his purification of that, which his dark energies and the dark snake, the warden, fought me to his teeth, because the Y chromosome is controlled by the black snake that is curled around our planet as the collective male negative third cycle energies under the dark ones. The X chromosome is unfortunately controlled by the elementals in the underworld. So we are having some huge issues with some of these astral entities that the collectives have created for us. And that's some of the, when we talk about the elementals that are connected to the X chromosome, you see men are both having the warden, the dark snake, as well as the elementals in the X chromosome. And when they shift into this inner female, they connect to different elementals, different insectoid beings, and different middle domain entities of the artificial fourth, that then takes them over and inflates them and becomes part of their quote-unquote feminine approach, which I've also seen. And I've been dealing with these female entities that are like ghost creatures in the male energy system. All versions of what a female should be and should not be, imbued by these insectoid, fairy-like, Sibyl, mermaid, God knows what males are dragging around in their energy system. And all the times they've been trying to conquer the female energy, they have created all sorts of female gestalts, to use the German word of it, astral beings that they are now struggling with, having again used their energies in the wrong way, instead of just taking that damn responsibility for the wholeness and work with the X chromosome energies and code systems as they should, taking responsibility of the environment, of others, themselves, the planet, the universe, the responsibility and the understanding of working for the highest good of the many, and not for the self-oriented Y chromosome third cycle directed consciousness structure. So that's the challenge between self and others that males are struggling with to a large degree, where they are focusing on the self and have issues with the others, whereas females are a self-other configuration where we always have focused on the others and have issues with recreating the true inner self structure of the first X chromosome. And for that, the next video. Thank you.